Configuring VLANs on a switch. In this module, we will demonstrate configuration of VLANs, the VTP mode, VTP domain, and implementing spanning tree protocol on a switch. If you are using a single switch, there is no need for a VTP domain. The default operating mode for switches is server mode. The other modes are client and transparent. For this demo, we will be using two switches in a stacked configuration. I've already named the switches server and client and assigned all passwords. We will start our programming of the switch closest to the router. This will be the switch that stays in server mode. Get to the global configuration mode. So we access our PC, desktop, terminal, verify our settings. It's asking us our password, which should be Cisco. Notice the name says server. Enable. Cisco again. Config T. Alright, at this point in time, we are now in the global configuration mode of the switch. The first thing we need to do is give our VTP domain a name. This is case sensitive. It is also very important to all switches within the same domain to be exactly the same. If you have a misnamed or misspelled VTP domain name, it is not sharing the same domain. It will not exchange VLAN database information. And then you'll find out that you will have accessibility issues with your switch. So VTP domain, and we're going to call this one lab1. Notice how the prompt says changing VTP domain from null, meaning non-existent, to lab_1, which is what I named this one. I must name the other switch's VTP domain the exact same, lab_1. If I do it in lowercase letters, it will not synchronize. Next, we must build our VTP or our VLAN database. We do that a couple of different ways, but the simplest way is we just go VLAN 58, and the prompt changes to config-VLAN, and then we give it a name. Name, we go voice. Next, VLAN 59, name, data. And finally, VLAN 222, and this will be name, management. To save this, we just merely type exit. This is now saved in our flash memory, not in our regular configuration, but in flash memory. Next, we will assign port assignments in the switches to the VLANs. This allows only members of those particular virtual LANs to access via those designated ports. First of all, we're going to go interface a range of ports. We can do multiple ports at once. Interface a range, fast Ethernet 0/1 through 10. We're going to give 10 ports per VLAN for the two VLANs of voice and data, and 1 port for the VLAN 222 management port. Technically, you don't need a management port assigned to any interface on the VLAN because you're going to interface the entire VLAN to assign the IP address, much like we did with VLAN 1 in a prior episode, in a prior module. Notice how the prompt changes to say config-if-range. Now we're interfacing a range of ports on this switch. To configure these ports, we must do them for access. So the word is switch port, and you can also hit the tab, mode, access. Switch port mode access. For short, we can just type in SW space M space A. Now we got to tell it what ports are going to be accessed by what VLANs. So switch port access VLAN 58. We have just now assigned ports 1 through 10 only for VLAN 58. We're going to go interface range again. Fast Ethernet 0/11 through 20. Switch port mode access. Switch access VLAN 59. Almost put 58 in there. Now we're going to go interface fast Ethernet 0/21, and notice it went back to just a single because it's not a range. Switch port mode access, switch access VLAN 222. That means the PC can only be hooked up to fast Ethernet 21, the PC for VLAN 222. We now interface our range for our trunk ports. F0/22 through 24. These we change to switch port mode trunk. The speed on these ports has to match what's coming on the other end of the trunk. So port 24 is going to be the one we use to go back up to the router, and port 22 and 23 are going to be the redundant links going between the two switches. So we must match the speed. Speed 100. Duplex full. Exit out of this. We now want to turn off any unused or unassigned ports. Well, we've assigned all 24 fast Ethernet ports, but we have not adjusted anything on the gigabit Ethernet ports. So we have interface range, or we could do it one at a time, but it's G1/1-2. They don't start out with G0. They start off with G1. And we just go and shut them down, administratively shut them down. We also want to interface VLAN 1 and shut it down. So we exit here, interface VLAN 1, and we shut it down. Being it is now administratively shut down, it will not be able to be accessed even if someone plugged into a port that was still associated with VLAN 1, because the VLAN 1 is shut down. We're now going to make our switch manageable by interfacing VLAN 222. Notice right away it says, hey, I'm up. We give it an IP address, 148.10.10.18, because the .17 on the 16 network was what we used for the sub interface on the router. 255.255.255.248, and we have to give it the address of the router, the default gateway. So we go IP default dash gateway, and the router's address 148.10.10.17. Exit. Now we give it a show run. Notice how our switch ports are coming up, showing what VLAN they are assigned and associated to. Go back into global config mode because we want to implement spanning tree protocol on this. Type SP, it's spanning dash tree. Okay. VLAN 58 through 222. This is a range of VLANs that's going to be accessing it. We're going to make this switch the root switch and primary. That is implemented spanning tree protocol, saying that this switch is the root switch. All the other ones want to associate with it, so they will shut down their secondary port coming back to this switch to prevent a routing loop. We're going to copy run start and then do our client switch. Select our PC that is associated with the other switch. Terminal prompt. OK. Notice I've already named this switch client. First thing we got to do is set the VTP operating mode to client. Setting device to client mode. We got to give it the VTP domain name. Once again, it says changing the domain name from null to lab1. We don't have to build our VLAN database. Because it's in client mode, it's going to get the VLAN database from the server switch. All we have to do is assign our ports to this switch. What VLANs are going to use what ports. So we're going to go interface range F0/1. I'm going to go all the way up through 21. We're going to make them all switch port mode access. Now I'm going to change my range. This way I wouldn't have to keep repeating switch port mode access, switch port access, VLAN this, VLAN that. I'm just going to change my range now. I've just now assigned ports 1 through 10 to VLAN 58. Hit the up arrow, I'm going to change my range 11 through 20. Up arrow a couple times, change that to 59. Interface F0/21. Switch access VLAN 222. Oop. Not 2222. It can't have a VLAN that high. There we go. We're going to exit out of that. Now we got to go interface range F0/22 through 24. These are our trunk ports. Switch port mode trunk. Speed 100. Duplex full. Exit out of that. Interface range gigabit 1/1-2, and we shut them down administratively. Interface VLAN 1, and we shut that down. Now we're going to interface VLAN 222 and give it an IP address. Oops, almost didn't get the subnet mask right. And IP default dash gateway and the router's address. Copy, run, start. Okay, I'm just going to minimize this for a moment, because now we're going to cable up our router to our switch and our two switches together, and then our PCs. So we select copper straight through cable, go from fast Ethernet 0, that's where we create our sub interfaces, to port 24 of the switch. As that's synchronizing and going green, it'll come up and talk with the router. We need a copper crossover. We're going to connect from port 23 to port 23 on the switch, and port 22 to 22. When these links come up and go green, port number 23 on the switch is going to remain amber, because it's going to be in the blocking state. We're going to go ahead and connect up our PCs. So VLAN 58, it goes to port 1 through 10, somewhere in there. Pick on port 11 or 12 for VLAN 59. And we know that port 21 only is for VLAN 222. So here, fast Ethernet 023. Fast Ethernet 022. It picks the lower port number, access to the switch. Go back into the PC. Notice we have a bunch of status changes. Hit enter. Now we go show VTP status. And right now it says, hey, configuration revision 6, number of existing VLANs 8, operating mode client, VTP domain lab 1. This tells us everything about it. It says the configuration last modified, etc. Show VLAN. Show our VLAN database. And notice it shows we have VLAN 58 voice, VLAN 59 data, VLAN 222 management. This concludes this exercise.